Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hemkaur Saroya, and on the show today, in a sign of escalating tensions in West Asia, 3 US troops have been killed as well as dozens injured in a drone attack on a US base near Jordan's border with Syria. US President Joe Biden responded saying that the United States will respond and that the attack was carried out, and I'm quoting here, by radical Iran-backed militant groups. We'll get you all the details on this on the show today.
Also on the show, after the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees was accused by Israel of being involved in the October 7th Hamas attacks, several countries have now suspended aid to the agency, which is considered a lifeline for the 2 million people of the besieged enclave. We will be tracking those developments closely. For now, let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
The United States will respond to a weekend attack in northeastern Jordan near the Syrian border, says US President Joe Biden. 3 US service members were reportedly killed in the attack as the situation escalates in West Asia. Jerusalem calling for the re-establishment of Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip. Far-right ministers and allies of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lead the march.
Turkey detains 2 Islamic State members linked to Istanbul church shooting that killed 1 person, says Turkey's interior minister. One of the suspects is from Tajikistan and the other from Russia.
Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian lands in Islamabad in a bid to defuse recent tensions following Iran's strikes in Sistan-Balochistan region and Pakistan's retaliatory strikes.
Fourth-tier side Newport City give Manchester United a run for their money in the FA Cup. The Red Devils see off a spirited fight back to reach the 5th round with a 4-2 victory. What initially began as a conflict between Israel and Hamas militants has now rapidly spiraled into a regional security crisis in the larger West Asian region, casting a shadow of uncertainty and instability over West Asia. Now, the conflict has spilled far beyond Gaza's borders. In the latest, a drone attack on a base in Jordan has killed 3 American troops, while at least 34 US soldiers are said to be injured in the attack. Now, it is the first time that American military personnel have been killed by hostile fire in West Asia since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Now, according to US officials, the attack happened at a remote logistics outpost in northeast Jordan, and that is called Tower 22. Now, this is essentially where Tower 22 lies, and as you can see, this is Syria, and it is right at the border between Jordan and Syria. That is essentially where the attack has taken place. Now, along the country's shared borders with Syria and Iraq, essentially that's where it is, where about 3,500 US troops are stationed. That is in Jordan. Now, the one-way attack drone hit near the outpost's living quarters, causing injuries that ranged from minor cuts to brain trauma. Just last week, Iranian-backed militias had launched a barrage of ballistic missiles and rockets at Al-Assad air base in western Iraq. Now, the US president blames Iran-backed militias in the region for the attack. He has vowed to hold the perpetrators accountable and says that the US will respond to the attack. According to a report by Washington Post, an umbrella group for Iran-backed militants called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq has claimed responsibility for this attack. Jordan has condemned the terrorist attack on US troops. They are calling it a terrorist attack, but they have mentioned that the drone attack that killed 3 US troops did not occur in Jordan. Further, they've added that the attack targeted Al-Tanf base in Syria. Now, to discuss matters further, we are being joined by Retired Colonel David B. DeRoche, who is a professor at the Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University. So, welcome to World DNA.
Thank you.
Colonel, I just want to start with this now. US had been very, very mindful of the fact that they don't want the conflict to broaden further in the larger West Asian region. Now that the US president has vowed that US will respond, I wanted to take your thoughts on this. How strongly do you feel US will be able to respond in this region? Very well knowing that US actions here can really have that effect of sending the entire region into a tizzy and further war situations.
Yeah, it's a good question. So far there have been over 170 attacks on U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq. The American response has been extremely measured and, to many in the United States, disappointing. So usually we've managed to intercept up till now the attack or minimize the effect of it. And what we wound up doing was bombing infrastructure, weapon system, vehicles that belong to these groups, to the Iran-directed proxies, mostly in Syria. There have been a few lethal attacks. In one instance where we were able to identify the terrorists who had fired missiles at the Iraqi air base that hosted U.S. forces, and we attacked there. But attacking these Iranian-directed groups in Iraq creates political problems for us with the Iraqis. So I think what we're likely to see now is that we'll escalate the target set to try to get the command and control of these groups and possibly the Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers who provide them support and direction.
Sir, I also wanted to understand over 100 attacks on U.S. coalition forces in Iraq and Syria, multiple attacks aimed towards U.S. ships in the Red Sea. Is Iran's backing one that strong that these militias are taking on a global power like the United States? Also, where are they getting their intel from?
Good question. So there's 2 points here. So the first point is Iran has made a conscious decision to avoid directly confronting the United States or indeed any other country. What they do is because of basically the trauma from the 8-year Iran-Iraq war, they've embarked on a conscious policy of operating through proxy forces. They seek out members of the same religious group as theirs, the Shia school of Islam, in countries that are extremely fragile, and then they build them up by providing weapons, guidance, logistics support, and advisors. And so what you've seen is that they've been very successful in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Iraq, and then as allies of the Syrian regime. That allows Iran to, advance its goals, but they realize that they're dealing with a democracy who will say, well, we don't want to go to a war here. Who are we really fighting? So it allows Iran to fight down for its strategic goals down to the last Arab.
I just wanted to take one more. Aspect here. Now,
Sure.
This is just further to what Haim just asked you. Is Iran's backing that strong that any small militia can go ahead and target a power like this US? Because the Houthi rebels, they exist in one part of Yemen. These other resistance forces, they are small factions in Syria and Iraq, barely a few hundreds or little more than that. US has forces deployed all over West Asia. What is giving these rebels the kind of confidence that they're taking on a global superpower like the US in the manner that they have?
Yeah, so, the modern types of weapons we've seen here, nobody's got a really good defense for drones. That's something that everybody's working on because they fly too low to be intercepted by traditional air defense systems. But again, the calculation, they try to figure out where the red line is that will elicit a U.S. response directly against Iranian issues. And then they operate below that, saying, well, does the United States really want to go into a regional war, over some small incident in Syria that, quite frankly, neither the Obama, Trump, or Biden administration has made an adequate case for to the American public. So it's done on a low-level hit-and-run attack. And if you directly ask, if you have an Iraqi diplomat on your show and ask him the question directly, he'll say, this has nothing to do with us. This is some group called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq. it's pretty effective. And they've been doing it for decades, going back to when Lebanese groups used to take hostages in Lebanon. Most notably, the envoy of the Archbishop of Canterbury was held for years. And, again, the Iranians said, well, it has nothing to do with us. But oddly enough, when Iranian demands were met, the hostages were freed. So it's an effective, frustrating means of warfare.
Colonel David DeRoche, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insights here. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining World DNA.
Now, moving on, the crisis over the UNRWA funding continues as several key donor countries to the UN agency refuse to review their decision.
At least 11 countries had earlier said that they would halt funding. Now, the decision follows Israeli charges that some UNRWA staff took part in Hamas' October 7th attack. UNRWA has fired several staff and promised a thorough investigation into the claims which were not specified.
Israel has vowed to stop the agency's work in Gaza after the war. Observers and aid workers said that the move by the donors would exacerbate hunger. Even before the conflict, the UNRWA, it was struggling to secure funding and warned that it was on the verge of collapse. Many of its 13,000 staff members are refugees themselves, and at least 150 have been killed since the Israel-Hamas conflict began.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said he was surprised by the move to pause UNRWA funding and said it would lead to more suffering for Palestinians. The Cairo-based Arab League said the suspension of funding aims to abandon relief efforts for millions of Palestinian refugees.
The Turkish Foreign Ministry also urged countries that had paused funding to reconsider their move. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas accused Israel of leading an oppressive campaign against the agency. He said, and I'm quoting here, the campaign aims to liquidate the issue of Palestinian refugees. Senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuri said that Israeli accusations against the UNRWA were a challenge to the International Court of Justice's decision. Remember now, on Friday, the World Court ordered Israel to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza.
Israel has been strongly critical of the United Nations and in particular Antonio Guterres since early in the war. Israel's then Foreign Minister Eli Cohen said on November 14th that the UN chief was not fit to head the organization. He stated that Guterres had not done enough to condemn Hamas and was too close to Iran. UNRWA was set up to help refugees of war at Israel's founding in 1948 and provides education, health and aid to them in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Syria and Lebanon. Now, one of Gaza's largest hospitals, located in Khan Yunis, is now a graveyard.
Literally, the death toll in Gaza is climbing with every passing hour. The latest Hamas government release puts the death toll at over 26,000. Due to a lack of space for proper burials, Palestinians have dug a mass grave in the yards of the Nasser hospital.
Now, according to the head of Nasser Hospital, this grave was dug out because the bodies which were in the hospital's mortuary had started to decompose and emit odor. Local residents in the area claim Israel's bombardment near the two medical facilities is hindering efforts of rescue teams to respond to desperate calls from people caught in the crossfire.
As you can see, we couldn't bury the dead in the proper graves, even though the proper place to bury them is only 200 meters away from here. In the past few days, we have buried 150 dead in the yards of Nasser's medical complex. And today, we are burying the rest of the civilians and the patients in the mortuary, and there are 30 of them. They were all buried because their families couldn't be here and their bodies started to decompose and give off an odor.
As Israel has focused its operations on the southern part of the enclave, Palestinian Health Ministry has warned medical facilities are at risk of collapse in Khan Yunis. Gaza Health Ministry spokesperson has said that in the past 24 hours, 165 Gazans have lost their lives and over 250 are wounded. As per the WHO, there are no functioning hospitals left in northern part of Gaza and only 9 functioning hospitals in the south. That too, only partially. And Benjamin Netanyahu said in a media interview that the war in Gaza is going better than many expected.
The Israeli Prime Minister went on to add that he represents the view of a majority of Israelis. His remarks come on the heels of the ICJ verdict on the genocide case against Israel and mounting discontent against the Prime Minister within the country. However, statements from various US and Israeli officials reveal a contrasting picture of the on-ground reality.
A Wall Street Journal report has quoted top officials from both countries revealing that 8% of the tunnel network in Gaza remains intact. This despite Israeli Defense Forces carrying out blanket military operations across the Gaza Strip. Israel's operations in Gaza are inching towards completing 4 months, killing over 26,000 Gazans, most of them women and children. But the recent revelations have shut down Israeli claims on war achievements so far.
The officials estimate that only 20 to 40% of Gaza's tunnel network has been damaged or rendered inoperable so far. The war in Gaza rests on two key goals spelled out by Israel: the destruction of the underground tunnel system and complete elimination of Hamas. However, several reports indicate that Israeli forces are a long way off from their objectives. A delicate hostage deal that hangs in balance further adds to Israeli government's moves, pushing thousands of Israelis to the streets in protests against Netanyahu's inaction on bringing the captives home.
Now, trouble continues to mount for UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Two by-elections in Wellingborough and Kingswood are due for mid-February.
Well, now a group of former advisors to several Conservative MPs have been accused of running a campaign against the Prime Minister. The Secret Seven reportedly includes Will Dry, a former advisor to Sunak, a trio of aides who earlier worked for Suella Braverman, along with former advisors to Robert Jenrick and Jacob Rees-Mogg. Another person working for New Conservatives, a group of right-wingers, has also been accused of conspiring against Rishi Sunak.
All except for Will Dry have denied their involvement in stirring a rebellion against Sunak. These accusations follow a poll in the Telegraph newspaper that predicted a landslide victory for Labour in the coming elections. Dry helped draw the questions for the poll. He says he quit the government after becoming dispirited last year in November.
The poll, which cost around $50,000, was funded by a group of mystery donors who call themselves as Conservative Britain Alliance. The timing of poll release coincided with Sunak's controversial Rwanda legislation. Now, many believe that the donors behind the poll are also financing the group of special advisors. The poll was accompanied with an article by Lord Frost, Boris Johnson's former Brexit negotiator. The article hinted that Conservatives were doomed unless Sunak changed his course rapidly.
Moreover, Sunak dodged an immediate threat last week when the former cabinet minister, Sir Simon Clarke, called for Sunak to quit and make way for a new Tory leader. However, his statements backfired when many Conservative MPs came forward to defend Sunak and criticize Clarke. Clarke's resignation is believed to be part of a series of coordinated attacks on Sunak, in fact.
One senior Tory who was part of the Rwanda rebellion has also hinted that there are around 60 members of parliament who make up the 5 families of Tory rebel groups.
With that, let's shift our focus now. 3 West African states, that's Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, have decided to leave the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS.
The 3 nations are led by the military, and the regional economic bloc has been urging them to return to democratic rule. Now, the states have now accused the body of becoming a threat to its members. They said that ECOWAS has failed to support their fight against terrorism and insecurity, while imposing illegal, illegitimate, inhumane and irresponsible sanctions.
After 49 years, the valiant people of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger regretfully and with great disappointment observe that the organization has drifted from the ideals of its founding fathers and the spirit of Pan-Africanism. They argue that ECOWAS, under foreign influence, betrayed its founding principles and became a threat to its member states and the populations, which it was supposed to ensure the well-being of.
Et ces populations dont elle est censée assurer le bonheur.
ECOWAS has responded saying it has not been notified of their decision to quit the bloc and that according to its protocol, withdrawal takes up to 1 year to be completed. The 15-nation bloc is widely seen as West Africa's top political and regional authority, but it has struggled in recent years to reverse rampant coups in the region.
Military power grabs took place in Mali in 2020 and 2021, in Burkina Faso in 2022 and in Niger in 2023. ECOWAS had suspended all three countries and imposed heavy sanctions on Niger and Mali, but the military leaders have argued that they want to restore security before organizing elections. After a day of crisis in Maldives, standoff continued in the Maldivian parliament even when the late-night session resumed. The chaos began after opposition MPs were barred from entering the parliamentary chamber.
This was by the ruling party MPs during the vote on President Mohamed Muizzu's new cabinet. Now, earlier, chaos occurred as ruling party leaders disrupted proceedings and blocked the parliamentary speaker from conducting proceedings in the House. Lawmakers were seen blowing a trumpet in order to disrupt the speaker's address. After that, two MPs got into a brawl and threw punches at each other.
A lawmaker was also seen running away with microphones amid a physical altercation. A few members of the opposition had withheld the approval of 4 leaders from Muizzu's cabinet. The opposition Maldivian Democratic Party and the Democrats, who hold a majority in the parliament, then collectively decided to block the approval of certain cabinet members.
The opposition has raised questions about the stability of the designated cabinet ministers. This comes amid strained diplomatic tensions between New Delhi and Malé. President Muizzu has asked New Delhi to withdraw its troops from the Maldivian waters. Two opposition parties in the Maldives have also come out against the current regime over its stark anti-India stance.
The Maldivian Democratic Party and the Democrats jointly issued a joint press statement labeling the shift in foreign policy as extremely detrimental to the country's long-term development.
Now, climate change activists threw soup at the Mona Lisa in Paris.
Well, it did no harm to the world-famous painting because of a protective glass in front of it. However, the activists claim that the move is to highlight the environmental emergency. Take a look at this.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. When we get back, we will bring you more updates on news which is coming in from India and what was his 5th turncoat maneuver this decade. Janata Dal United chief Nitish Kumar has dumped the struggling opposition alliance and joined hands with the ruling National Democratic Alliance. The Bihar chief minister was one of the key faces of the INDI alliance bloc.
Also on the other side, ahead of Pakistan's election scheduled for February 8th, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's PMLN and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's Pakistan People's Party have released their respective manifesto. All details on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
We are one, you and I. Burning in the sun. Rising in the rain. One in celebration. One in pain. One in a tragedy. One for our rights. One in search of hope. One in our fights. One beyond borders. One beyond our race.
This could be one
in the face of adversity. We are one, you and I, and it's our right to know how and why. WION, you are more connected than you know.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation. Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, we've covered how the United States, it's now vowed a response to the drone attacks on a US base near Jordan's border with Syria. We've gotten you all the developments on how tensions are escalating in West Asia.
The US president has vowed that US will respond. How severely will US respond? How strongly will they respond? Now that is a question that needs to be answered, because US is very mindful of the fact that they don't want the conflict to escalate or broaden further. We will be tracking this closely. Let's get you started with headlines.
The United States will respond to a weekend attack in northeastern Jordan near the Syrian border, says US President Joe Biden. 3 US service members were reportedly killed in the attacks as the situation worsens in West Asia.
Thousands of Israelis march in Jerusalem calling for the re-establishment of Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip. Far-right ministers and allies of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lead the march.
Turkey detains 2 Islamic State members linked to Istanbul church shooting that killed 1 person, says Turkey's interior minister. One of the suspects is from Tajikistan and the other from Russia.
Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian lands in Islamabad in a bid to defuse recent tensions following Iran's strikes in Pakistan and Pakistan's retaliatory strikes.
Liverpool begin manager Jurgen Klopp's farewell tour in style. The Reds smash 5 past Norwich City to reach the 5th round of the FA Cup. And in what was his 5th flip-flop this decade, Janata Dal United chief Nitish Kumar has dumped the struggling INDI alliance and joined hands with the ruling National Democratic Alliance.
The Bihar chief minister was one of the key faces of the opposition bloc. He was at the forefront of the united attempt to take on the Bharatiya Janata Party, but his switch to the BJP has left the INDI alliance staring at a long overdue crisis.
बिहार राज्य के मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा.
Soon after Nitish Kumar's announcement, the Congress hit out at the JDU leader, comparing him to a chameleon. The opposition party said that the people of Bihar will never forgive his betrayal. But as he took oath as the state's chief minister for a record 9th time, Nitish Kumar asserted that there is now no question of leaving the NDA fold and going anywhere else. He added that the development in Bihar will gain momentum under this coalition.
The Indian Prime Minister has hailed the newly formed NDA government in the state, saying that it will fulfill the aspirations of its people. BJP President JP Nadda has reaffirmed that the double-engine government will benefit Bihar, a reference to BJP governments in both the state as well as the centre. BJP leaders have also claimed that with this development, they will win all 40 Lok Sabha seats in the state in the upcoming general elections. But the opposition has denied that this move could hurt the INDI alliance, condemning what they call political opportunism.
NCP President Sharad Pawar has said people will give a befitting reply to the politics of frequently shifting loyalties, while Congress leader Bhupesh Baghel has said that this time Nitish Kumar's credibility has ended.
The INDI alliance is, however, lurching from one crisis to another. Trinamool Congress leader Mamata Banerjee and Aam Aadmi Party's Bhagwant Mann have ruled out seat sharing with the Congress in their states, West Bengal and Punjab. But the bloc has expressed confidence about placating the chief ministers and sealing seat-sharing arrangements with other allies in a few days.
Moving on now over to Pakistan. Ahead of the February 8th elections, former three-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's PMLN and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's Pakistan People's Party have released their respective manifesto.
Interestingly, Nawaz Sharif has said in his manifesto that if he is voted back to power, he would send message of peace to other countries, including India. But there is a condition. The manifesto said that PMLN wanted India to reverse actions it took in Jammu and Kashmir in August 2019. India has told Pakistan that Jammu and Kashmir is an inalienable and integral part of India, and the Ministry of External Affairs has reiterated that Article 370, abrogated by India's Parliament in 2019, is entirely a matter of India as well as its constitution.
Interestingly, Nawaz Sharif has said in his manifesto that if he is voted back to power, he would send a message of peace to other countries. Here are some of the promises Nawaz Sharif made in the poll manifesto. If voted to power, the party said that it will provide cheap and increased electricity to the public. The party has promised that it will ensure greater representation of youth in national politics as well as in local governments. The manifesto says that Sharif's government will establish Pakistan's first sports university as well.
While the party for Nawaz Sharif launched its poll manifesto with the slogan Pakistan ko Nawaz do, or give new voice to Pakistan, the PPP kept its manifesto's tagline as Chuno nahi soch ko, or choose a new Chuno nahi soch ko, or choose a new thinking. Now, as for PPP's manifesto, it mainly deals with poverty eradication and facilities for lower and working classes, healthcare, education, food security and women's empowerment. Their manifesto, however, had no mention of foreign policy and India.
Meanwhile, in Karachi, police broke up a rally attended by hundreds of supporters of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. They were protesting against the attempts to keep Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party out of an upcoming election. Let's now take a look at all the updates from the world of technology.
In a startling revelation, it has been uncovered that certain iPhone features were exploited by third-party apps, leading to significant security breaches. Tech giants like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram and Threads have reportedly utilized push notifications to gather user data without explicit permissions. Despite Apple's reputation for strict security measures, a recent report exposed the exploitation of in-app ads to collect sensitive information from iPhone users. Developers managed to gather data from iPhones even when the respective apps weren't actively opened. Although iOS apps aren't permitted to run in the background, push notifications temporarily activate the app when received. During this brief activation, users' data is harvested and transmitted to third-party apps. To safeguard against this breach, Apple users are advised to disable push notifications on their iPhones and iPads.
Elon Musk's SpaceX is facing a negligence lawsuit. In 2022, a lawsuit was filed against SpaceX over negligence following a rocket engine malfunction that fractured a worker's skull. The worker's wife filed the lawsuit in LA. During a pressure test at SpaceX's facility, part of the Raptor V2 engine broke away, causing the injury. The incident highlighted the systemic issues at SpaceX, with over 600 unreported workplace injuries, according to an investigation. Despite warnings about rush development and inadequate training, SpaceX had no response to the lawsuit or the investigation.
Across the US, thousands of students are getting caught by school-installed surveillance to curb e-cigarette use. Schools are using millions of dollars, including COVID-19 relief funds, to invest in monitoring tech. Each sensor costs over $1,000 and claims to aid virus prevention by monitoring air quality. In New York alone, the vape detection system is in use in 75 districts. They are discreetly mounted on bathroom ceilings where cameras and microphones are prohibited, often without students' knowledge. The system automatically alerts administrators when vape smoke triggers a chemical change in the air.
A recent report warns of increased cyber attack risks on children through AI apps, online games, and smart homes. Kids using AI tools with inadequate cybersecurity measures face threats like age-inappropriate content, malicious attacks on young online gamers, exploit trust for personal information. The report says that the smart home devices expose children to cybercriminal contact, risking financial data loss or harm. The report urges parents to discuss online safety, set clear boundaries, and enforce strict guidelines.
Over to updates from the world of business. In the world of economics, it is widely accepted that a confluence of factors are required to maintain financial stability. Central banks, the financial system, government spending, and most importantly, you, the consumer.
And in this delicate dance of financial revival, it is the American consumers who've kept the global economy's feet tapping. Take a look at this next report to find out how.
In a landscape fraught with economic uncertainties, the United States stands out as a beacon of stability, showcasing a commendable economic performance that leaves global counterparts in the shadows. As the Eurozone grapples with stagnant growth and the Chinese market experiences a period of volatility, the United States has orchestrated a stable economic narrative, and at the heart of this success lies the poise of its consumers. The recently unveiled GDP numbers, revealing a 3.3% annualized growth rate in the fourth quarter, have surpassed even the most conservative forecasts. At the core of this accomplishment is the astute conduct of U.S. consumers who have navigated economic challenges with an understated elegance. Delving into their spending habits reveals a discerning mix of services and goods, including dining, healthcare, and recreation, showcasing a consumer base with thoughtful economic engagement. Unlike their European and the Chinese counterparts grappling with economic downturns, U.S. consumers have wielded their purchasing power judiciously. The combination of tangible acquisitions such as clothing and an investment in intangible experiences like dining and travel has been a defining feature of this economic equilibrium. While acknowledging the skepticism surrounding interest rates and the housing market, the focus remains on the role played by U.S. consumers. From prudent spending during the pandemic to a deliberate shift towards enriching real-life experiences in subsequent years, American consumers have demonstrated a nuanced understanding of economic dynamics. In a theater dominated by inflation fears, it's the resilience of U.S. consumers that takes center stage, rendering them the unsung heroes of economic stability. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And surveys and indicators in the Eurozone reveal that inflation is cooling faster than expected.
The anemic growth forecast for the region has bolstered speculations of an early start to European Central Bank interest rate cuts. Now, a key survey conducted by the ECB indicates a downward revision in the inflation outlook. Projections now place inflation at 2.4% for the current year, a drop from the previous estimate of 2.7%. Moreover, growth forecasts for the Eurozone in 2024 appear to be considerably subdued. The GDP is now expected to expand by 0.6%, a downgrade from the earlier projection of 0.9%.
These figures, combined with lending data, suggest that economic activity remains lackluster, with lending growth showing signs of bottoming out after a particularly weak 2023. This disinflationary trend is reflected in the streets. Lending to both corporations and households is slowing down, indicating sluggish economic activity. While this points to stagnation, there is a small glimmer of hope. Corporate lending volume reached its highest point in over a year, suggesting a potential future investment despite current softness. The ECB remains cautious despite the rapid inflation retreat. They emphasize that price pressures haven't fully subsided and believe it's too early to even discuss lowering interest rates.
However, with some governing council members calling a 2024 rate cut a near certainty, the debate is heating up. The ongoing economic stagnation further fuels the case for early rate cuts, with some even suggesting March as a potential starting point. All right, next up, let's take a look at some stories that are making headlines in the world of sport, starting with Manchester United, which has reached the 5th round of the FA Cup after surviving a huge scare by fourth-tier side Newport City. Skipper Bruno Fernandes put United ahead in the 7th minute before Kobbie Mainoo scored his first goal for the Red Devils in the 13th minute. But the tie looked over, but Brian Morris' long-range deflected effort in the 36th minute gave some hope to the hosts. Will Evans stole a march on Rafael Varane and equalized 2 minutes into the second half to send the home crowd into raptures. Now, United was stunned but managed to regroup to regain the lead in the 68th minute when Anthony scored his first goal of the season. Rasmus Højlund completed the scoring for the visitors.
Liverpool joined Manchester United in the 5th round with a 5-2 win over Championship side Norwich City. This was Liverpool's first game since manager Jurgen Klopp announced that he will leave at the end of the season. He got a rousing reception as Curtis Jones nodded the hosts ahead in the 16th minute. Norwich equalised through Ben Gibson 6 minutes later, but Darwin Núñez restored the lead with a calm finish. Diego Jota made it 3-1 in the second half to put the game beyond the visitors. Substitute Virgil van Dijk headed home from the 4th goal. Norwich pulled one back through a brilliant strike by Boris Sainz, but it wasn't enough as Gravenberch completed the scoring in the stoppage time.
Congo have knocked record 7-time champions Egypt out of the Africa Cup of Nations following a penalty shootout. Meshak Ilia put Congo ahead in the 37th minute. Their lead lasted 9 minutes before Mustafa Mohamed converted a penalty on the stroke of half-time. Egypt were reduced to 10 men after Mohamed Hamdi was sent off in the extra time. The match went to penalties, and in a thrilling finish, Congo goalkeeper Lionel Mpasi scored the 18th penalty to give his side a 8-7 win in the shootout. The 67th ranked side reached the last 8 without winning a match in regulation time at the event after drawing all 3 of their group games. Yannick Sinner is the new Australian Open men's singles champion. The 4th seed came from 2 sets down to beat 3rd seed Daniil Medvedev on Rod Laver Arena at Melbourne Park.
Now, Sinner is the first Italian male to win a Grand Slam since 1976, and this was the first.
Started to push him back with deep ground strokes and once again broke Medvedev in the 10th game to force a decider. A tiring Medvedev fought hard, but Sinner.
So many players who have this kind of pressure, but in the other way, when you have pressure, it's always okay. He believes that I can really do it, and so yes, I like to dance in the pressure storm. I don't know how to tell. Like me personally, I like it because that's where most of the time I bring out my best tennis.
Now, England have produced the greatest comeback in Test cricket on Indian soil after beating the host by 28 runs in the Hyderabad Test.
Ollie Pope's magnificent century and debutant Tom Hartley's 7-wicket haul handed India just a 4th defeat on home soil in 48 tests. Pope walked in along Rehan Ahmed at the start of day 4 with England ahead by just 126 and with 4 wickets standing. Now the tail rallied around England's vice-captain with Rehan Ahmed scoring 28 and Hartley 34. Pope took England past 400 and was last man dismissed for 196. He became just the 7th batter to erase the team's first innings deficit all by himself as England posted 420. The home team needed 231 and that would be the 5th highest chase ever on Indian soil. Captain Rohit Sharma and Yashasvi Jaiswal put on 42 for the first wicket. Jaiswal fell to Hartley in the 12th over, and that opened the floodgates, with Shubman Gill following a couple of balls later.
Sharma's dismissal for 39 set off alarm bells, and the England 4-man spin attack reduced India to 117 for 7. Srikar Bharat and Ravichandran Ashwin fought back with a 57-run stand for the 8th wicket, and that got the target down to 55. Hartley bowled Bharat for 28 and Ashwin fell for 28 as well. Mohammad Siraj and Jasprit Bumrah took India past 200, but Hartley finished